Back when the road itself felt like a destination, the car was our living room, our radio station, our weather report, our compass, and our cafeteria. Sometimes all on the same two-lane highway. No blue dot, no soothing voice telling us to reroute. Just warm vinyl seats, the faint perfume of gasoline and tire rubber at the station, a glove box swollen with maps, and the click-thunk heartbeat of a turn signal steadying our nerves through rainstorms and wrong turns. Today, we're opening the doors to that era and climbing in together. Let's count down the 25 car culture skills we mastered before GPS ever existed. By the end, you'll leave with a simple line that still unlocks help at any roadside stop, even now. Paper map, trifold mastery. A full-sized highway map was a sail if you held it wrong, and origami if you held it right. You snapped it open with both hands across your knees like a picnic blanket, smoothed the counties, then read the veins of red and blue until the route formed in your head. Your thumbs were your pinch zoom. Your index finger traced the next town like a chess piece planning 3 moves ahead. Refolding was a ritual. Edge to crease to panel. Air pressed out with your palm so it slid back into the vinyl sleeve without a fight. A coffee ring on Route 66, pencil stars by scenic overlooks, a circle around a diner someone's uncle swore by. That map became a scrapbook. You didn't just see the road, you learned it. AAA triptych and mileage math. When the AAA agent slid that triptych booklet across the counter, you felt like you were holding government secrets. Transparent tape arrowed detours. Highlighter traced safe paths through orange construction zones. Each flip brought another tidy rectangle of highway, with notes about good food and decent restrooms. You calculated distance with a ruler and a finger, then multiplied by your average miles per hour. No app, just arithmetic, and a hunch about traffic at state lines. You penciled stretch legs on the page where the river crossed and wrote "Call Mom" beside a town with a perfectly respectable payphone outside a feed store. That booklet lived between the seats, pages curling at the corners, smelling faintly of felt tip marker and adventure. Thomas Guide/grid coordinates. City driving wasn't chaos. It was a grid if you had the right book. The Thomas Guide turned a metropolis into bingo. C12 to D8, page 143 to page 144. A tiny arrow showing where the street continued. The clear plastic spiral cracked, tabs dog-eared with loyalty, margins filled with pencil. Best shortcut, no left turn, ice cream after practice. You learned to jump pages without losing north, to whisper coordinates like a pilot, to move across the city in discreet, satisfying hops. It felt like having the secret blueprint to somewhere that so many people claimed was impossible to navigate. Mile marker and exit number logic. Highways spoke if you knew the language. Mile 132 meant you and the state line were having a countdown. Odd-numbered interstates ran north-south, evens east-west. Lower mile numbers started near the southern or western border. Exit 134? If you were at 130, breathe. 4 miles to go. You learned to read the green signs the way sailors read stars. A simple, steady calculation. Distance, speed, time. No drama. When the rain hit and the world turned gray, that little sequence of white numbers on green was your compass rose. Gas station rituals, full serve era. Windows smeared with bug ghosts, hand them over. The attendant asked, regular or unleaded? And you answered like you were reciting a family recipe. While the pump clicked, a squeegee ballet unfolded on the windshield. Dip, swipe, flick, crosshatch. The squeal of rubber on glass was oddly soothing. The dipstick slid out of the engine like a bookmark. "You're fine," he said, and you believed him. The restroom key lived on a hubcap, a paddle, or something ridiculous you could never pocket on purpose. You bought a glass bottle soda and a map clipped to a wire rack. The station was more than a fuel stop. It was a little pit crew with manners, tire pressure, and the coin test. Tires talked too. You kept a simple gauge, thumbed it onto a valve stem, listened for the hiss, and read the little piston like a doctor checking a pulse. If your gauge went missing, there was the quarter or penny trick for tread depth. Heads down, Washington or Lincoln telling you when it was time to rotate or replace. Dust caps rattled in your pocket as you tightened them back on. And you never lost them because that would be sloppy, and you were not sloppy. A few extra pounds before a long haul, a few less when winter bit hard. Little decisions that kept you planted and safe. Bumper jack and spare tire change. When fate picked the shoulder, you became a pit crew. You eased off the road, hazards on, parking brake yanked like your life depended on it, wheel chocked with a flat rock if you had one. The bumper jack wasn't elegant, but it did its job. You respected it and kept your hands where they belonged. Lug nuts broke loose in a star pattern, a satisfying crack follow-through with your weight. The spare came out of that trunk, well, with a smell like rubber and dust. Knees on a shop towel so your jeans didn't wear the highway home. You tightened everything again after the first mile because you'd been raised right. Jumper cable etiquette. The dance had steps. Red to dead, red to donor, black to donor, and the last black not to the battery, but to clean metal. Ground it like wisdom says. A nod to the other driver was part of the ceremony. All set? A rev, a turn of a key, that blessed cough and catch. You didn't peel away, you let it run, you said thanks, and if you had a coffee coupon, you pressed it into their palm. And if someone tried to do it backward, you gently corrected them because the right way isn't just safer, it's neighborly. Manual transmission, hill starts. Clutch in, first gear, eyes up. You felt the bite point like a sixth sense, a vibration through sole and shin. Maybe you feathered the handbrake for the steep ones, release and gas in the same breath so the car rose forward instead of rolling back into someone who took your bumper personally. The gear stick had a personality, cool in the morning, warm by afternoon, knobbly or smooth depending on who'd owned it before you. That confident pull into second, that was a small symphony. Choke sick, carb cold start rituals. Cold mornings turned you into a mechanic for 30 seconds. 2 pumps of the pedal to prime the carburetor, key twist, a cough, a sputter, then a gentle feathering to settle the idle. If there was a choke, you eased it out like a curtain cord, then nudged it back as the engine found its breath. Glass fogged a little, your sleeve wiped a porthole. The exhaust curled in the chilly air like a gin. When the engine finally purred, you and the car shared a private victory. Snow chains and winterizing. You learned to lay chains flat behind the drive wheels, then roll forward onto them and clasp them tight with fingers that swore but did not quit. The sound on dry pavement, clink, clink, was your reminder to take them off once the pass cleared. Winter washer fluid replaced summers. A scraper lived in the door pocket, and you carried a blanket not because you were fearful, but because you were wise. A little kitty litter for traction. Gloves that still smelled faintly of last year's pine. And a habit of lifting the wipers before a storm so they wouldn't freeze to the glass. You were your own weather service. Radiator and overheat triage. When that needle edged higher than your comfort, you didn't argue. You pulled over, popped the hood, and waited. No hero moves. Steam meant patience. You respected pressure like you respect lightning. When things calmed, you checked the overflow tank first, topped off with water you kept in the trunk, and never touched the cap while it was hot. A towel saved your hand and your pride. You learned that calm beats panic, and that most machines just want a minute to cool down, same as people. Headlights, high beams, and the floor dimmer. Some cars asked you to tap the world with your foot. That little silver button on the floorboard, click, brought the high beams up like a stage manager calling lights. Flash to pass was courtesy, not attitude. Fog lights weren't decoration, they were for fog. You learned to aim headlights in the driveway against the garage door after a bulb change, adjusting until both beams hugged the same line. Out in farm country, when the night went velvet and the stars stepped forward, you let the beams carve a tunnel and drove like a person who belonged there. Wiper, defrost strategy. There's fog outside the windshield, there's fog inside your head, and only one of those needs the defroster. You knew which, and you got it right on the first try. Fan to defrost, heat up a bit, crack the side window to balance moisture, wipers time to the rhythm of your thoughts. In a pinch, a paper napkin from last hour's diner stop made a quick inside swipe. Wiper blades squeaked a language. Healthy, chattering, or please replace me. You could translate in a heartbeat. Bench seat diplomacy. That front bench was a sociology experiment. The slide bar clacked, everyone scooched, elbows negotiated a treaty, and whoever was in the middle learned posture and grace. Vinyl stuck to summer skin, so you draped a towel and pretended it was style. AM radio sang family harmony, and if somebody reached for the dial mid-chorus, their hand got tapped and they learned about timing. You learned to share inches of space and miles of patience. Vent windows and cabin airflow. Before fans had speeds numbered in digital blue, we had a wing of glass with a chrome latch that clicked. You set it at the exact angle that pulled air across your face without whistling. A magic trick performed at 45 miles an hour. The map on your lap fluttered like a flag when it was wrong. You pinned it with a finger and rode the breeze anyway. In a summer thunderstorm, that crack of the wing and a slight drop of the main window sent warm rain smell through the cabin and a calm through your shoulders. Turn signal manners and merge mercy. Blink early. That was the rule. Not a panic blink at the last second, but a polite heads up to your neighbors. The zipper merge was a handshake. You left one car length for the next person, then waved when someone returned the favor. A simple palm lifted over the shoulder meant, "Thanks, friend." 4 ways on when you had to slow the world behind you. Courtesy didn't cost a minute. It bought you miles. And if someone forgot, you let it go. That's what grown-ups do. Hand signals when bulbs blew. Out the window, elbow pinned, forearm straight, left turn. Bend the elbow up, right turn. Palm down, hand fluttering, slow. You did it big and honest. Not a lazy flip that made someone guess. A spare set of bulbs lived in the glove box next to the registration, folded like a little flag. You replaced what you could when you could, and in the meantime, your body became the blinker, tuning the stereo like a sound tech. No streaming, no algorithmic suggestions. Just you, a radio, and whatever the clouds allowed. You finessed the antenna sweet spot to kill the static, nudged the balance so both door speakers carried their weight, and set the fade so the back seat felt invited but not in charge. Cassettes clicked into place with a satisfying clap. Pencils lived in the console to rewind a tape that had tried to marry your player. You learned the language of hiss and warble, and decided where a song lived best. Windows up for ballads, windows down for anything with hand claps. Roadside picnic protocol. You didn't have to settle for fast food if you had a cooler with a metal latch, a tartan blanket, and a thermos of something that made everybody nicer. Shade under a tree turned into a dining room. You picked a pull-off with a view, cracked open the lid, and built sandwiches with a pocket knife you kept sharp and clean. The air smelled like pine, sun-warmed upholstery, and oranges peeled with thumbs. You packed your trash back out because the place belonged to the next family too. A 10-minute stop lasted 30 because no one wanted to leave something that simple and perfect. Convoy and CB radio basics. If you were lucky enough to caravan, you learned spacing, far enough to break, close enough to not lose the tail. CB chatter had manners. You waited a beat, pressed the talk button, and kept it short. Where the construction started, which exit had clean restrooms, where the best pie lived. Call signs scribbled on a notepad so you knew who was who. Even without a radio, you flashed headlights to pass messages, tapped the brakes to warn, used hazard lights to say caution ahead. It was community dressed as traffic. Detour recon and county road backups. Orange signs did not ruin your day. They made you clever. You watched the sun position, followed rail lines, used water towers as exclamation points that said, "Town this way." Mailbox numbers climbing, you were headed the right direction. Gravel under the tires wasn't a defeat, it was a story. A county road might take 5 more minutes and give you 3 more memories. A barn quilt, a field of sunflowers, a farmhouse porch with a dog who considered waving a moral imperative. Trip odometer and gas range math. You press the little chrome stalk and watch the numbers fall back to zeros like a slot machine delivering calm. You knew your miles per gallon and did the math in your head. Tank size times average, minus a safety margin you didn't brag about because it was just what responsible people did. When the needle hit a quarter, you started planning. At an eighth, you committed. No drama, just stewardship. A low fuel light was information, not a dare. The emergency little kit in the trunk. It didn't take much. A flashlight that didn't roll, spare fuses taped to a card, a pair of work gloves, a rag, triangles that snapped open with a red click you could find in the dark, a paper map, a bottle of water, and a handful of quarters for the kind of day when plastic suddenly wasn't the answer. Tucked beside the spare, it took up almost no space and gave you back all of your dignity the first time you needed it. Co-pilot etiquette. Shotgun means navigator. This was the master skill. Half logistics, half love. The person in the right-hand seat wasn't a passenger. They were mission control. Map unfolded, corners tucked so the driver could still see mirrors. Snacks rationed so no one crashed before the state line. Playlist curated to keep a night driver awake without fraying their nerves. Turn in 2 miles, then turn in 1, then, after this gas station, left. Calm voice, clear cues, no backseat panic. Great co-pilots prevented wrong exits and wrong moods. They didn't nag, they guided. That's how a car becomes a team. Take a breath. Smell the cooled off engine, the faint vinyl, the orange peel on your thumb from lunch. Hear the turn signal click, the tire hum, rise and fall with the pavement seams. These weren't just driving tricks, they were patience and awareness disguised as mechanics. Kindness and competence wearing a steering wheel like a halo. We didn't just get from A to B, we managed the road, read the sky, and turned strangers at gas stations into allies with nothing but eye contact and a good question. And here's that line I promised. The one that still works anywhere there's a person behind a counter, or a pump, or a register. Who knows the local lay of the land? Hey there, mind pointing me to the best way around, censured, where airs today? Fill in the blank with whatever's gnawing at the root. Construction, a fair, a ball game, a street festival. It's polite, it's specific, and it honors the fact that someone else knows something you don't. People like being asked, they like being useful. 9 times out of 10, you'll get the shortcut and no app will show you because it's not a road, it's a rhythm. If this unlocked your muscle memory, if your palms can still feel the paper map's soft creases, if you can hear the radio fade to static as the hills rise, if your heart knows exactly how far a quarter tank will take you, tell me the skill that saved your bacon once. Tell me the first car you learned all this in, and the trip that taught you more in 1 weekend than a semester ever did. Tell me the county road detour that gave you your favorite diner. Because the truth is, these skills aren't gone. They live in us. And when the screen freezes or the signal drops, they're right there, ready to steer. We were the map. We still are.